Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. As Lisa introduced, I coordinate a group called the California Fish Passage Forum. And some of you may have heard of us, but I'm excited to give a little bit more detail. All right, obligatory question. Can everybody see my screen? Good, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Thank you. So I'm going to do kind of a short, maybe about 15-20 minute presentation. I definitely want to leave some room for questions because one of our goals at the forum is to make sure we are engaging and plugging in with the local watershed councils and RCDs. So I really appreciate Lisa's opportunity to come and speak with you guys today. Generally, I'm asking people to come and talk at my meetings, so it's actually a real honor to go to someone else's meeting and talk, since we all know that partnership and sustained connection helps make the work easier. All right, so the California Fish Passage Forum mission is one that a lot of you probably align with in some way. It's to protect and revitalize anadromous populations by restoring connectivity of their freshwater habitats throughout their historic range. We do this through our goal of promoting both public and private sectors to make fish passage improvement easier, better supported, and overall better connected. So our geographic range here is all of the anadromous waters of California and up into Oregon in the newly freed Upper Klamath River Basin. On the side is this really fantastic project that we helped fund with Trout Unlimited leading that replaced a culvert in I believe, Mendocino County over a railroad crossing to accommodate some massive wood during high flow events. And it's just a great picture. Love it. All right, so the forum is one of 20 other partnerships across the nation under an umbrella program called the National Fish Habitat Partnership, which is sanctified and funded annually as a federal program. So some of these that we work with closely and other partnerships you may have heard of, which are doing work on the West Coast, are of course, the California Fish Passage Forum. Here's us, we're number 2 here. Western Native Trout Initiative focuses on native trout across all of the Western United States. Other partnerships on the West Coast include the Pacific Lamprey Conservation Initiative, PMEP, or PCLI, and the Pacific Marine and Estuary Partnership, which you'll be hearing from a little bit later. Additionally, there's a network of partnerships within Alaska and a partnership in Hawaii. So each partnership has a bit of a different focus and niche, and here at the forum, we mostly focus on anadromy and fish passage, understanding and reducing fish passage barriers. The forum membership includes 13 signatory agencies. We are in a period of growth right now, and we've added several signatories in the last year. These include the major federal and state agencies, which have a hand in resource management in California, as well as some of our major nonprofits, including California-specific ones like California Trout, as well as national nonprofits such as American Rivers, Trout Unlimited, Environmental Policy Innovation Center. Sustainable Conservation is another example of a really great California-specific nonprofit, and I'll mention some of their products a little later. We've got 7 strategic objectives. I've kind of summarized them here, and those mostly include the funding of removal and remediation work, but also assessment, research, outreach, essentially anything that you guys need to help improve fish passage conditions, either directly or indirectly. We also work to improve collaboration and information sharing between our signatory agencies, as well as between other networks of restoration practitioners across the state. Collating and elevating resources, increasing awareness of simplified or alternative permitting pathways, and outreaching the success of fish passage restoration across our geographic scope. We do this through some science and data work. We do have a science and data committee, which is, I would say, our most active committee at the forum. We do invite other groups to come and present at those meetings periodically. So if you guys are interested in keying into a little bit of who's on the Forum Science and Data Committee and sharing a bit of your work, I would be happy to arrange a presentation. Feel free to send me something in the chat. I'll also put my email in the chat at the end of this, so if anybody wants to grab it, they are welcome to. So through our Science and Data Committee, we do a few different things, mostly related to the California Passage Assessment Database, a rapid assessment form and protocol, which allows for some more kind of a lower barrier to entry for fish passage assessment for people who maybe aren't able to do a full assessment protocol. We also do workshops to help support assessment work and increase practitioners' confidence in assessing potential barriers to fish passage. And we're working on a project to collate and standardize post-barrier removal monitoring data, since, as you guys know, sometimes data is stored all over the place in a lot of different ways, which makes things a little difficult. So I want to talk just a bit more about the Passage Assessment Database. Has anybody here heard the Passage Assessment Database? If you have, you can just react through Zoom. Or if Zoom is making that hard for you. Yeah, I see a thumbs up. Good. Well, if you have, great. If you haven't, this will give you a little bit more information. As this wall of text here says, it is a up-to-date inventory of potential fish passage barriers across the entirety of California in both anadromous and non-anadromous watersheds. It's a real team effort. It compiles data from more than 100 organizations and private landowners and has been a kind of a work mostly through the Forum, Caltrans, the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission, and CDFW. So there's a few different ways you can use the pad. There's a map viewer, which I'll show you in the next screen. You can also query the data in the pad by entering any number of things, such as the county, the tributary name, the stream name, as well as, I believe, species, presence, absence, and all sorts of other things. Those also link to reference documents, which might be helpful for working within that particular watershed. PAD, thankfully, is available as a feature service. So if you did want to use the map periodically, you are able to download the map feature, which means that anytime there's an update to the PAD, it automatically comes into your ability to use the pad, and you don't have to download a new version when new versions are released. The pad also connects with several different restoration priorities, including the CDFW statewide list of priority barriers are available on the pad, which can be helpful for trying to visualize barriers which potentially should be given more attention based on the science and priorities of fish passage agencies. So looking at the pad a little bit, I'm just going to play a video here, so don't be alarmed when things move. So this is kind of what the map viewer looks like. Right away, you'll see that there's a tremendous amount of unassessed barriers in purple, and also barriers where the passage status is unknown in orange. You can see in the Central Valley here that all of those gray stars are unscreened diversions. And then zooming in on Contra Costa County here, we can see that there are a number of barriers that have been remediated. Those are in blue, and barriers that have been shown actually not to present a passage issue, which are in green. Red squares are total barriers. So those are definitely areas which might need some restoration work. Those are, like I said, kept reasonably up to date. If you guys are ever looking at the pad and you see something that you believe is not accurate or not up to date, the pad is always accepting new data. The pad data manager is very responsive to updates. And if you Google the pad, her contact information is on there. No, I do not want to play the video again. All right. Some of our other science and data work includes a report of monitoring methods, which was provided to the forum by Ross Taylor and Associates, which describes the many different ways that organizations monitor for the effectiveness of their restoration and barrier removal work. We also have a performance worksheet that's meant to provide a snapshot of conditions before and after removal, which we use to also improve the data in the pad. Additionally, we have a data product which explores barriers to connectivity in tidal waters, including tide gates, barriers in estuaries, dikes, things like that. And that was a partnership between the Forum, the Pacific Marine Estuary Partnership, and the Lamprey Conservation Initiative. And we have a hub site which kind of works through a lot of that data. And that's all available on the Fish Passage Forum website. So if any of these things are perking your ears up, that's where you can find them. As I said earlier, a goal of the forum is to support fish passage assessment. As we saw on the pad, there's a whole lot of places that we don't know if they're presenting a fish passage issue. They're either unassessed or unknown. So for organizations which are able to do a full assessment, including hydraulic modeling, that's great. But for people who are out working in the field who want to capture some data, there is also a rapid assessment protocol, which kind of gives an idea of the conditions at a site without having to do an entire model. So that is currently actually being updated and is going to be available on the forum website here pretty soon, but it's not available right now. Probably within the next few weeks, it'll be back up on the forum website. So this assessment protocol is definitely something I can connect you with, but I'd recommend emailing me so that I can make sure that I get you the newest version. We have been outreaching this rapid assessment protocol both at workshops. This is a workshop from the last SRF conference in Santa Cruz in 2025. We're also going to be doing a fish passage assessment workshop that covers not only rapid assessment, but also full fish passage monitoring techniques and modeling software and processes at the UC Davis Fish Passage Conference in May of 2026. So if anybody's going to Davis, you'll see us there. So moving on slightly, one of the things the forum is very proud of is our ability to fund restoration work each year. And we do this through the National Fish Habitat Partnership. So here is a screenshot of the projects and accomplishments dashboard from the National Partnership, showing our completed projects in blue and our active projects here in green. Over the, let's see, more than 12 years since the forum was founded, we've done 69 projects, which have conserved many thousands of acres and opened up almost around 300 miles of streams to anadromous fish and engaged more than 3,000 people. So that's pretty exciting stuff. So one more video here that just kind of shows a little bit more of our projects. If you were to filter down to the California Fish Passage Forum from the national suite of projects done by NIFHAP, you'll see something like this. So each of these projects represent both barrier removals, research, assessment work, monitoring work, but also outreach and community building and other activities like that. So the forum definitely aims to fund a wide suite of things. Zooming in again on the East Bay area and Contra Costa County and the surrounding areas, you'll see several projects. Two notable ones from Contra Costa County include the Pinole Creek I-80 crossing, which many of you might be familiar with. That project opened up quite a bit of good high quality habitat and was funded by the forum and other partners. And the Wildcat Creek Fish Passage and Community Engagement Project, which I heard mentioned earlier. The forum has been instrumental in funding 3 phases of that project, which is going to help provide a improved fish passage structure, as well as a series of mini parks and better community connection to Wildcat Creek in the North Richmond area. So that's really exciting. Those green dots, our active projects, include several different exciting projects. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service project is looking at the movement of white sturgeon in the San Joaquin River via radio telemetry, and we've been honored to fund that for the last three years. Additionally, the removal of a concrete low-head dam on Jenny Creek, which is a really important tributary to the Klamath. You guys have probably heard of that project. That was partially funded by the Forum. The 2 other projects, which are still currently in the works, is a set of fish passage assessments in Weaverville in Trinity County, which is a remote and very forested and high relief area, which is difficult to assess. So we were happy to help support their assessment efforts to understand their fish passage needs. And as I mentioned, the project from the Watershed Project, improving the fish passage on the Wildcat Creek area in North Richmond. So that's what these are right here. Our upcoming projects include 2 projects which we're supporting in 2020, which we have been supporting in 2025. Those include a redesign of the Adobe Creek area by Sonoma County Public Infrastructure, shown here on the side with a barrier, which is an outfall of the creek, and a design for an improved road stream crossing in critical coho habitat, which is put in by the Gold Ridge RCD. So in 2026, we've got some proposed projects which are awaiting funding. And then our next round of funding is projected to open in summer of 2026 for funding to arrive in summer of 2027. So if you've got any projects which could use some funding in 2027, definitely keep an eye out and subscribe to our newsletter if you aren't already. So the Forum funding opportunity is a smaller funding opportunity. We appreciate requests of less than $100,000 each so that we can fund a few projects each year. And we recommend several different costs which that could be used for, which include, of course, barrier removal, assessment, monitoring, both either pre or post barrier removal, community outreach and education, land acquisitions, easements, projects that assess the effectiveness of restoration techniques, and other research projects. And because of this wide variety, we do like to think that we're a rather more flexible funding program than others. So if you've got some things that you're having a bit of a hard time funding, or meeting some cost share needs for your project, the Forum funding opportunity could potentially help meet those needs to move your projects along. Like I said, we are mostly focused on anadromous species. So our priority species include the salmonids, including coho, chinook, and steelhead, as well as Pacific lamprey, coastal cutthroat trout, green and white sturgeon, eulachon, and the 3-spined stickleback. So essentially any species which potentially uses the ocean at some point in their life cycle and has like a migratory aspect. If that is in some way present in your watershed, that would be a good way to use the Forum funding opportunities. One thing that is relevant is that all projects do have to show a 1-to-1 non-federal financial match, unless the project applicant is a tribal entity or a tribal government, in which case the match requirement is removed. Match does not need to be secured before application, but there should be a match plan in place so we can kind of assess the likelihood of the project being able to meet that. We do have some flexibility on the match requirement. It just depends on the other suite of projects that are coming in on any given year. So you can reach out to me if that's something you're concerned about. Additionally, the forum does help to increase the awareness of simplified or alternative permitting pathways, which can be used to help save time and money as you are permitting your project. A really good resource for this is the Accelerating Restoration website, which was created by Sustainable Conservation. They have an entire spreadsheet and decision tool for looking through your different permitting options, determining which ones are right for you, and walking you through the steps for how to apply and also ensure that you are staying compliant with your permits. So that can be accessed at acceleratingrestoration.org or .org. Okay. That was a bit of a fire hose of information. That's all that I have for you right now. And you can definitely see more about any of this and subscribe to the forum newsletter at cafishpassageforum.org.
So Pacific Marine and Estuarine Fish Habitat Partnership, it's a mouthful, so we usually refer to ourselves as PMAP. So we launched in 2012. And this is our vision. I won't read it, but our mission is to provide science and data and funding to conserve and restore West Coast nearshore and estuarine fish habitat. So as Holly mentioned, all of the fish habitat partnerships around the country have slightly different focuses. So this is our geographic area that we work in. We do work in Northern California, Central California, and the Southern California Bight, but we work just in coastal drainages. We focus on estuarine habitat and nearshore marine habitat, whereas Holly mentioned that they also work in the upland areas. So we have a couple different work streams, and I'm going to go through those work streams now. The first thing that we do is we fund on-the-ground projects. So Holly mentioned the forum's approach to funding on-the-ground projects. Ours is similar, but a little bit different. We do fund up to about $100,000 for projects. And again, these are focused on fish habitat conservation, restoration and assessments in the estuarine environment and in the nearshore marine environment. So one of the unique pieces of the Fish Habitat Partnership is that we do fund assessments. A lot of the restoration funding opportunities around these days don't necessarily fund assessments. We also fund monitoring. We don't fund standalone monitoring projects, but we do fund monitoring associated with on-the-ground projects. And PMAP regularly funds about 3 to 4 projects. Most recently in California, we've funded restoration on the Smith River, and for the last couple years, we're funding restoration of eelgrass at Catalina Island. One of our second work streams is we support assessments and studies of fish habitats along the U.S. West Coast. And this is work that's independent of our National Fish Habitat Partnership funding. Generally, we receive funding from other partners to do some of this assessment work. So we've done quite a number of assessments on U.S. West Coast estuaries. Our most recent assessment has been the state of the knowledge of U.S. West Coast nearshore habitat use by fish assemblages and select invertebrates. So this is a really big report that we launched in 2023. And more recently, we did a smaller report on restoring tidal swamps in the U.S. Pacific Northwest. And this is information specifically for practitioners. And I want to mention with our assessments, they generally are accompanied by data. So I will go into this. Our third work stream is compiling and standardizing data sets. So these are companions generally to our assessments. So for example, the nearshore report that I mentioned has several different data layers of habitats in the nearshore. There are nearshore zones, there's biotic habitats, there's abiotic habitats, as well as the fish assemblages and invertebrates. So that data can all be found on the PMAP website, and it is accompanied by some tools that we've developed. that are based on the ArcGIS platform. So we generally do trainings on how to use our tools every couple years. We did one recently in November, or no, in December with the Tijuana National Estuarine Research Reserve Coastal Training Program. So we regularly do trainings on these data tools. I'm not going to go too much into the tools, but just to know that all of the data associated with our assessments are available for download on our website. And these data for estuaries, for example, have been compiled into standardized data sets using the Coastal Marine Ecological Classification Standard. So all of the estuary data from Washington, Oregon to California are standardized so you can compare between estuaries all along the US West Coast. So these data tools and the data sets have been used extensively by restoration practitioners and resource managers and researchers. They're really useful to help plan restoration projects because they provide information about where historically estuaries have been, and also historically the different kinds of estuaries, whether they're shrub scrub or tidal forested or other kind of tidal estuary. Just as an example, the Estuarine biotic habitat data layer that we have is part of the marine habitat layers for the offshore wind planning process in Oregon. And our nearshore data has recently been used by NOAA to update habitat areas of particular concern for groundfish along the US West Coast. So just a couple examples of how our data is being used. Our fourth work stream really focuses on outreach to restoration practitioners to help them be more effective at their work. We regularly provide hands-on training about our data tools, as I mentioned. We also have developed some how-to videos that are published on YouTube, so you can get to those from our website as well. Most recently, we've been hosting virtual symposiums focusing on effective estuary restoration. We held two in 2025 and one in 2024. Stay tuned for our next one in spring of 2026. So these virtual symposiums have covered different topics such as carbon sequestration in the context of habitat restoration. They have covered monitoring guidances that are available for restoration practitioners who are working in estuaries. And they've also covered, the first symposium covered sort of a history and evolution of how restoration in estuarine environments has progressed over years. The The project that is supporting the symposiums is funded by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and it also includes the development of online resources for restoration practitioners. So we're in the process of updating and reorganizing our website in order to pull in resources for restoration practitioners who are working in the estuarine environment. But we already have quite a lot of resources on our website right now. And I think, Holly, you mentioned this exploring the science and data of barriers to tidal connectivity. So this is a project that PMEP worked together with the Pacific Lamprey Conservation Initiative and the California Fish Passage Forum. So that is available on our website. And those website resources include recordings or we had a symposium related to tidal barriers to connectivity. And so that website page has those presentations. It also includes this hub site around barriers. So Holly already kind of covered this, but I want you to know that it's part of the PMEP website as well. Another resource that we have on our website is the synthesis of eelgrass restoration techniques along the US West Coast. So this report also has a companion web page on PMEP, which summarizes the key findings of the report, restoration planning, the methods that were evaluated, how success is evaluated. It has some case studies and project data. So this project involved going to different eelgrass restoration projects along the West Coast and evaluating how they were done and how they're being monitored. There is a case study on that website. There's case studies on there which document how the site suitability was assessed and what methods were used and how they've conducted a pilot restoration and restoration at scale. So these are the steps that our researchers determined were the most important to ensure effective eelgrass restoration. And one of the case studies is actually in your area, the mitigation that was done related to the San Francisco Bay Oakland Bay Bridge. That is highlighted on this website, and the way that the project proponents assessed site suitability and the way they selected their methods and conducted pilot restoration is highlighted and explained in there as a case study. So like Holly, I wanted to be quick so I could leave time for questions. And the best way to understand information about PMEP is to sign up for our newsletter. So you can go to our website at pacificfishhabitat.org. And again, on the first page, scroll to the bottom and you can sign up for our newsletter. We don't publish newsletters super frequently, but we often do e-blasts around when our RFP is out and when we're reporting on assessment reports that are recently published. So it's a really good way to keep apprised of what PMEP is up to. And here's some other websites that might be of interest to you related to where our data is and where our assessment reports can be found.